Okay, we're live. Drupal UX meeting, May 8, 2018. A couple of people in the Hangout, a couple of topics. Benji was thinking about sandbox modules for experimentation and an outline of, or a list of issues to maybe work on at Design for Drupal. And I could also talk a bit about the plan for what I and Christina have been working on so far in, well, plotting and planning the work for a Drupal admin redesign. There's quite a few moving parts we've identified, and we're trying to find the best way to sequence them to get effective as soon as possible. Benji, could you talk to your topics a bit? And then I can follow up, I think, because then that gives me a couple of minutes to listen and also prepare some of the docs.
Okay, I was going to say much the same thing.
Okay.
And I suspect that anything you say about the state of the admin redesign is something that I'll be able to use at Design for Drupal. But coming out of last week's meeting, I decided that there are a bunch of things where various people think, yes, this change would be a good idea, but without some sort of evidence, there are changes that are very hard to decide that we should make. So for example, there's a proposal to move the custom block library from being under admin config block layout or whatever to under admin content so that it's more accessible to content editors. And we have an issue, we have a patch on that issue, it works, but it's not going to get committed until we can convince people that it's actually an improvement. And so I think what I'd like to do is have either a custom module or a custom patch that collects this and some similar issues in a similar state, so that we can do some user testing and decide which of them really are improvements and hopefully get those issues committed, and which are more trouble than they're worth. So let's see, some other issues I was thinking of. I think there's a meta issue related to getting some more consistency in the URLs for admin themes and admin modules, and adding a theme or adding a module. Right, I don't have the issue number right in front of me. And actually, let me see if I can find it quickly, because I did start collecting some links. So let's see, yes. Here we go. So a meta issue that I've looked at for a while is 2888657 or 2888657. And I guess if I share my screen. I don't recognize the name of the reporter, Charles Belov, but there are several child issues here. So I think some of these issues are related to being more consistent in user interface text, such as install a new module versus add a new module, whether there should be an install tab on admin/modules. I think that's, again, related to consistency between themes and modules. Anyway, there are several child issues of this meta. As you can see, several of them are in yellow, indicating that they're waiting for review. And let's see what other issues that I collected here. Related to moving custom blocks to content. Well, I guess I should open that one so we can have the issue number in the recording. That's 2862564. That's the issue to move custom block library under admin/content, which I think we discussed last week. There's this issue about improving the discoverability of the menu expanded option, which we discussed at a recent meeting, maybe 2 weeks ago. That's 2802837. That item F, I think, is probably not a good idea, but maybe if we include it in the module, we can get some testing and confirm that it's not a good idea. But make displays appear like local tasks in the Fuse UI, and that's 2489654. So those are some of the things that these are the notes I'm preparing for a possible session at Design for Drupal in Boston next month. And those issues that I listed are some of the things that I think might be suitable for gathering together into one module for user testing. And I'm open to further suggestions.
Yeah, great list.
Thank you.
Having them inside a module is would be super useful, because same, yeah, it could be a module, right? The analogy I was thinking about was like similar to the Umami install profile. Maybe we need that sandbox indeed, and it could still be a module, but we need the admin next generation sandbox where we can also do the information architecture changes so that we can test them, as you say, because we can change colors, etc. But the minute we start moving things around, we run into backward compatibility issues, etc. If we want to do that, or upgrade paths, etc. If we want to do that inside the default admin environment, if we could, so it seems to make sense to me as well that we start that sandbox so that we can, well, contrast and compare and test and validate stuff like moving those moving custom blocks to content, which seems like a no-brainer and even conceptually makes sense, right? It's content, should be, so it should be findable under content, but it is not right now. And we kind of break quite a few bits if we just do it. So we want to be able to show that it's the better idea. Yeah. And at Design for Drupal, it could be great to sprint on it on the actual module, but maybe if indeed there are designers there, I'm thinking there are.
Yes, I expect there will be plenty of designers.
Yeah. We could also, because I see you, so like your 6G blue sky, we could also invite people to come up with more like concepts, right, for different interaction patterns. Okay, maybe maybe I take over and outline a bit of how we see the work for the admin redesign, and then we can circle back to what we could do for at different events that are coming up this summer.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, sharing screen. Okay. Whose Vim is that? Is
Mine.
that mine? Okay, of course, yeah. Um, I started thinking about what the different parts are if we want to do a Drupal admin redesign. I'm hoping people are seeing the actual Google Doc right now, right? I'm having open. Check.
Yes.
Okay. With some scribbly notes. So there's the shorter term goal of updating the current 7 theme. And if it's a short-term goal, we probably can't do those things like moving custom blocks somewhere else, etc. So we'd probably have to focus on updating our visual design language, the visual language for the Drupal admin UI. Thinking about it a bit more, thinking about other design systems I've worked on, it looks like we need to start working on an actual Drupal admin UI design system. And the design system consists of more than just the colors and the typography, right? There's design principles. We have to agree on some definitions, language-wise. We do have style for the aesthetics, for the visual patterns, say typography, colors, and different treatments, which is how things look. But there's also the part for how things work, using components, using patterns. And I think animation should also become some kind of top-level subject we should start designing with and for. And of course, a complete design system would also need docs and a way to maintain it and update it, etc. If we have a short-term goal of visually updating the UI, then we should probably start with these top 3, right? We need to define some principles, maybe look at some of the language, but then focus on the style, the updated visual language, which could result in the new visual language, which would inform whatever we're calling this 8 theme, right? The short-term update visual, that's a visually focused update of 7 theme. So that's starting with style. And of course, we need to identify some principles, etc. And then, depending on theme, etc., we could do that in parallel. But then we could shift the focus to components, patterns, and animation. And those elements would inform the really, really new React-based admin user interface we're building. Of course, that visual language would then also be translated to that React theme as well. But it would be inside that new React-based admin UI that we would also play with, new ways of how things would work, how interactions would work. I'm trying to write that up a bit. Luckily, Dries started posting some values and principles for the overall project. I made a first tab at translating those to what does prioritize impact mean if we're looking at it through a design and usability lens. Same for some of the topics in there. I'm not going to go over them too much, but there's definitely good stuff in there that matches also would inform good. But it helps to define some principles for the design, because then that gives us high-level guidelines to make decisions on detailed levels. Scrolling a bit down. So yeah, I'm copying much of the structure from a good book about actual design systems. Design systems book. You should read it if you're interested in the topic. she knows what she's talking about. This is a very solid part. It talks about the elements and the process for design systems. So we need design principles. So we have the aesthetic and perceptual patterns. This is where the styling part comes in, right? I copied here the stuff we identified for. This is the old proposal for this 7 style guide. We identified some values for the visual appearance there as well. So we should probably revisit them and update as we feel necessary. Yeah, language, big topic. User interface text and naming things as they are, etc. Is useful to do. But the main distinction I'm making is we would like to design the system itself, right? This whole design system. And that design system has different applications. And the 2 main applications of that system I'm seeing is the initial visually focused admin theme update and the more how does it work based evolution of that in a second phase, so that we focus on interaction patterns and animation, etc. So that's what I'm outlining here. This is where we are right now. Okay, one thing I can also show. So Christina, I think she joined the call in the meantime. And Christina, so people are often, designers are often working now with Sketch, but we also have Sketch is a macOS only desktop application, but there's also Figma, and Figma is a Sketch-like tool that works in the browser, which means that although it is paid, it is cross-platform. Christina reached out to Figma, and Figma was interested in sponsoring us. So we now have an account that we can, I think, sign up, add. Well, I'm not sure if it's unlimited, but at least as many people as we like for now. So we have a shared visual design environment. And one way to start identifying what we need or what we would the visual update want to look like is to design what they call style tiles, which are more specific than mood boards, less concrete than actual screens. It's a collection of interface elements that together give a good impression of how the interface looks. So this would be, for example, could be the style tile for the current 7 theme. There's already quite a few actually elements on the page here, and I hope you'll agree that if you look at this, then that what we're seeing is the current Drupal 8 admin visual appearance. I think there's no mistaking it, that it looks like what it is right now. Which means that with this single page, we have an indication of how the whole UI would look in general. And where we are right now is gearing up to get more designers involved. I think, well, at least Christina will start working on this, is to basically start designing variations on this, right? Especially because in this first iteration, we can't really do the admin UI, the information architecture changes, etc. So we should really be focusing on the visual and aesthetic elements in this first iteration, which makes these style tiles a good tool, I think, to start exploring what it could be, how the new updated visual language could look like. And that's where it ties back to what Benji talked about, because if we want to do, and we do, also want to experiment with the information architecture and other, well, how things work changes, means that we could, so we focus on workflows, etc., and that might also then need either that module that sandbox module Benji proposed, and maybe it also needs to be an install profile, but I'll defer to whatever people think. I'll stop talking for a bit, but I think there's a lot of there that's overlaps with what Benji was talking about, and I think there's also interesting elements here that could be chunks of work we can invite people to work on at Design for Drupal. So, any feedback? There was a lot, but I hope I made clear at least that distinction about a general Drupal design system that has different applications, right? A new 8 or whatever updated admin theme, and then a second application in the React-based admin UI where we can do the fancy draggy droppy whiz boo stuff as well. Thoughts, feedback, questions?
Great, thank you. Awesome work. You working on the so who's working on the React admin UI? Is it you guys or is it a different team?
It's a different theme, and a different theme. So in Drupal, there is also a JavaScript. In the Drupal Slack, there's also a JavaScript channel. And here we see some of the main suspects. So Daniel and Dr. Pal is one of the team leads, etc. Justifish is one of the initiative leads there. So the JavaScript channel, they meet on Monday evenings, Euro time. This is where the JavaScript team hangs out. And I think because that's really at dinner time, and I really can't make it most of the time, but Christina has been joining them and keeping basically our and their work at least updated on each other's progress.
Awesome.
In the Figma project you created, did you include the ideas from the proposed style guide for 7?
Sorry again, Benji.
In the Figma project that you started, did you include the ideas from the proposed style guide on groups.drupal.org?
No, for now I tried to. What I now did is recreate what we see when we have Drupal 8 installed, because that's our starting point. I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, we also discussed whether we want to spend energy actually, because that style guide proposal for Drupal 7 for the 7th theme is not fully implemented in what we have right now. At least Christina and I were feeling like, let's spend energy on the actual new visual language.
Okay.
There's a couple issues that would still also inform or benefit whatever new thing we come up with, but minimally so.
Jacob, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this. Well, okay, if we go to this diagram that you have up, the admin design system, and try to wrapping my head around how we get to this 8 theme and the React admin UI, and Benji wants to do some, we want to do this experimental module. And I'm starting to imagine that we might have to approach something where we have an admin base theme. That concept would allow us to maybe even do some information architecture changes while in D8 and not D9, because this base theme could move things around, not break other people's implementations, but be a starting point for the 8 theme, and then Is the React admin theme going to go on top of the 8 theme or be its own separate theme? Those components?
Yeah, we're going to have long discussions about about that probably at Frontend United early June, because the scope of the JavaScript initiative is big and fuzzy and not well enough defined yet. So we're not really clear yet. So that's where the language part comes in on what we really, well, we know what we want to achieve generally, but we don't know yet. I don't have a clear foundation for that established. For that 8 theme, our current thinking is let's copy 7. Let's make a copy of the 7 theme because that works right now, and because we're focusing on visual updates, well, we should start working on a general visual update, and then look at a first application of it to a copy of 7, and work within the constraints of how 7 works, and see what we can do there. Not just, but by only updating visual aspects of it. Whatever becomes the foundation for a React-based admin UI theme, well, I'm not the one to talk to that because it's too technical for me, and I think it's not clear enough yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it and I'm going, there's this opportunity to do an admin based theme because there's, like we have all these design patterns that people are doing in different admin themes. And if they could be not tied to look and feel, but just patterns,
yeah,
it opens up some opportunities. I mean, because my gut is the React, and I know you're not there, but my gut is the React theme is going to have to tweak it's React theme. The React admin, which will become a theme, will have to start tweaking different aspects. And if there was a base theme to work off of, that can make it easier, and you might get other people who've done some admin themes involved because they'll work on the admin base theme to help their themes.
Yeah,
reducing code duplication.
It sounds sensible to me. I think you want to discuss that idea with some people from the JavaScript initiative.
Yeah,
because I think they're probably interested in getting some foundations in place, right? I don't know what it would mean, what those foundations would be.
Mm-hmm.
So are you thinking that the base theme would generate the markup and that child themes could then decide how to style it?
Yeah, or make strong recommendations for certain patterns. Like my gut says we're going to have cards in our new admin theme at some point,
for example.
And to have a universally designed card, and is the card coming from core? It's probably coming from a base theme because I see a lot of people doing a lot in the admin, in their admin themes, in that .theme file, and that maybe could be reusable.
Okay, so this also talks then to components, I guess. I mean,
oh yeah,
that again, language. What do we understand to be a component? But I think for what we currently we don't have components, and if we have fake components, they don't live in the theme, I guess. So what I'm hearing you say is whatever new components based system we would have, it would live in this base theme.
Yes. I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say I don't see us getting a React. I mean, I haven't talked to the JavaScript and the React team, but components are going to be the key to getting there.
Yep.
It's the only way to get people to wrap their head around React, which I don't even use. It's like you get these small little reusable Polymer web component-like things with just little JavaScript sets, and everyone starts to understand how that works, and then they get over to React. So yeah, I personally find components should be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I know. It's. I mean, I'm an interaction designer. I'd rather. My focus would also be on how it works.
Well, if we look at Bootstrap,
sorry.
I was going to throw out, if you look at the Bootstrap 8 theme for Drupal 8, it's really heavy on the component side. That's the most popular theme, and it went object-oriented managing of the pre-processing. I know I'm getting into the weeds of implementation, but it's how do we get to that point, the new admin theme?
Right. I think that's a very big, still mostly open-ended question, what the foundations would be for this new React admin user interface. Yeah. It also would be good to not try and shoehorn that in that initial visual update. So that's why we're thinking, let's just copy 7 as is and yeah, give it a lick of paint, basically, which is not ideal way of doing it, but it would allow us a way to, well, make a new impression, right? When people install Drupal 8 versus the same old they've been seeing for years now, which is also an important part.
It makes total sense to me. I hope that anything you do in the the repaint is reusable. Like where you don't have to recut and paste all the CSS. That would be the.
Yeah. But still, sometimes you gotta make one to throw it away to know what you need.
Roy, when you talk about the 8 theme, is that your short-term goal, the refresh of 7, or is that the long-term goal?
Yeah. That's the short-term version. And we're looking for people to help us out with it. So this is the high-level overview. Christina and I have been preparing and scheming on this. Christina has found somebody who would be willing to project manage it. And I guess one of the main roles we're still looking to fill is somebody with enough GitHub or whatever code pushing chops to get the infrastructure in place so that we can actually start hacking on that copy of 7 to start implementing whatever ideas we come up with. And then it's back also to what Benji said, right? What do we need? What do we want if we want to experiment with information architecture changes as well?
So what are you saying? What skills do you need on GitHub?
No, sorry. Christina's a designer, front-end developer. I'm designer, interaction designer. We need a tech lead for this initiative, so somebody who can help us set up the infrastructure for whatever GitHub or contrib theme start we want to make so that we can actually implement this 8 theme somewhere and build it. It's good to design things, but we need to implement things so that we can ship them. And we need technical support.
Well, setting up a GitHub repository is easy enough. I can certainly do that. And
yeah, what else do you need apart from GitHub?
I think we're now at the point where we can actually start, where we actually can start getting action, as in I want to check this style tile approach with Christina so that she's comfortable with it as well, and say, okay, if this is the thing that we want to iterate on for the visual update, then this is the thing that designers who want to have a go at it can copy and work. We can add them to this Figma project, and they can start designing new proposals. And the focus would still mostly be on this visual level for now. So the code, CSS, etc. implementation of it in this copy of 7 is not the most urgent. I guess we need to figure out the best way to set it up. I think Lowry was already gearing up to create some of the necessary Git repositories. I think he also did the same for the Umami project. So there's some prior art there in how the process could work. But I'm also very interested in, well, yeah, that module Benji was talking about, so prototyping actual information architecture changes. Sorry, it's all over the place, but we're going towards actionable stuff. So I think for me, the focus would be to translate some of the stuff, make it findable in IssueQ, spin off some sub issues for some of the parts we've been talking about, and start designing basically, and figuring out our process and approach.
So I guess anything you do at the theme level, there's not a lot of distinction between a core theme and a contrib theme. So if you just have a GitHub repository that contains the theme, people can install it and test it, and eventually it can be moved into core pretty easily. Mm-hmm. Modules, there's more difference between what you can do in a separate module from what you can do by patching core.
Okay.
I guess it depends, because if we are thinking that we're going to use this theme as a sorry, I haven't said that, and I haven't said anything because I was in the way. No, I can't say something. So I guess the main difference will be you don't have to just think on your on what you have on the screen at the moment you're theming, but you have to take into account a lot of possible options that core is going to need from, I don't know, for example, a button or a page or whatever. People always manage to find a way to find almost impossible ways to apply whichever component you think on. So that's the main difference, I would say. I mean, that's the main difference with Umami. For example, for Umami, we were just theming what we had on the designs, but we weren't theming, thinking with what people can do if they start modifying stuff. But I guess that's the main thing we have in 7, that at the moment that you want to add more stuff, you have to think how you handle it. Not sure if I'm explaining.
Yeah, extensibility is a principle, right? Or a value of the system, and we have to take it into account. You can't put some field somewhere and not expect some concept module to add something to it. There probably is a module that adds something to whatever part of the interface, and we have to take that into account.
Exactly. We have to take that responsibility.
So Benji, any inspirations for what you want Design for Drupal people to ask?
Well, I've been gathering some design issues from these meetings, and I'm hoping people will contribute ideas on Slack. And if I can, I guess the contribution deadline is the 16th for the proposal deadline, rather. So if by then I think I have enough material that I can put together a presentation, I will go ahead and do it. And I think I think if there's anything public that we can point people to from this redesign discussion,
yeah,
that would be a big help. If there are issues on the Drupal issues queue that we can talk about, that'll help. And And of course, I think design for Drupal takes the idea of design pretty broadly, so it's not just color palettes and typography and visual design, but also includes things like information architecture and so forth, the ends of design that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, so it would especially be interesting to have something in place where you can do those experiments, right, and sprint on those experiments. Yeah. Even little React prototypes. I mean, much of the JavaScript team is focusing, or is working very much on plumbing, right? Just being able to use React and have React communicate with Drupal, etc. So, although Christina has been working on some interface proposals, like a permissions page, how that could work in a 21st century way, but I think there's a lot of room for, yeah, pretty wild ideas for how we can optimize and improve typical Drupal workflows, because we know there's room to improve them, right? When is design for Drupal?
It's late June, I think the 23rd to 26th or something.
Okay. Front-end United. We'll have an actual, probably multi-day sprint.
Right before Dev Days? The week before Drupal Dev Days, maybe?
So Front-end United is May 31 to June 2nd, and well, basically from May 28th, the Monday, and then further in that week the actual conference. But there's sprinting all week. Then there's Drupal.
Design for Drupal is the June 27th to 29th.
Okay.
And then a couple days later is Dev Days. 2nd of July.
Interesting. We should pass along some experiments and have 3 iterations of it.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're very close in time.
Okay, yeah, Benji, feel free to loop us in, and I'm willing to, happy to help with whatever presentation and/or design sprint tasks you want to come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Do we have any volunteers to be project coordinator? That was one of the things you said we were looking for.
Yes, we have a. Christina can talk to that maybe.
Yeah, we have a volunteer that she's gonna help us as project manager. She's not a designer or a developer, but she said that she was willing to help with whatever she could. So that's great, because there's a lot of stuff as product manager that it's great that someone wants to take care of it. And I guess the main role will be now on the theme part. I mean, maybe not, we don't have to say the leader, but someone that moves things and take decisions and start the GitHub and make the first commits, and someone that is not afraid of starting.
Yeah, well said. Somebody who's not afraid of starting something. Yeah. So yeah, that was a high-level, broad, wide-ranging discussion of things, but this is where we are with how we think we best approach a updated Drupal admin UX, basically. Identifying something that can deliver quick wins and also work for longer term, more invasive and more foundational changes. So that was the topics for today. There's room for totally different questions if people have them, remarks, etc. And otherwise, we could call it a meeting.
Would you like me to set up an empty GitHub repo and start inviting people to?
I think Larry already set up something. I'm not really sure exactly what he did. I know I think he created a team on GitHub, but I'm not sure what exactly. Maybe just ask to him, and he can point you exactly on where he is.
Yeah, we spent some time bike shedding and naming things, which we shouldn't be doing. So
yeah, the two haven't happened. I mean,
yeah.
that's the least important thing, the name of the thing.
I'm actually starting to like 8 again, just to make sure that it's temporary, right? That's end of life implied there as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's see how. That's the less important thing right now.
Yes. Okay, so Benji and maybe also Worldline Mine. We'll check in with Larry what he's set up and make whatever decisions we need to get that up and running. Yeah, and I think Christina is talking to the project manager tomorrow. Basically, the next step is getting stuff linked up and defined and outlined in the actual issue queue so that we can point to it and start inviting people and start designing things.
So if you know any designers that want to get involved,
yeah,
send them to the admin live to say something, say, hello, I want to help.
Yeah, so we started this call in the hashtag UX channel. There is also the hashtag, the room admin-UI, which is a more specific channel or group, what's it called, in Slack, focused on just this work. Admin-UI in Drupal Slack. Okay, folks.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of workflow in GitHub, so basically you want to start designing using that online design software, but you want to jump into code as soon as possible, right? So you need a copy of the current 7 theme named as 8, and where you can start, changing the styles of the theme itself. And is that correct?
Yeah, without being a developer myself, that seems to me the most practical and pragmatic way to start making changes that we can actually then commit back into core.
Yeah, good. And so, for example, if you invite more people to join, so if someone starts to work on something like changing the style of, I don't know, a table header, and they should probably open up a pull request. And is it how you imagine this?
If I knew how GitHub works, I would be able to answer it. I think that's how it works, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. This
I'm
is how.
underplaying how I understand it, but I can't be the one who really answers or leads that. But yes, what you're saying is what I imagine we want to do.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, we still don't have the designs finished.
Uh-huh.
So I guess what can actually be done right now is removing stuff from 7, for example, or I don't know, um, changing things from 7, but not actually creating a component like a table and adding styles to that table, but because maybe it just completely changes with the design. Not sure if I mean, we don't have the designs, so I'm not sure if we are going to, when we create the designs, we just create them with HTML, and later on it's just adding some, copying some styles already generated during the design process. That's what I still don't know.
Yeah, whatever people, if we have an 8 theme in place tomorrow, say, and people want to start doing things, it's either really functional bits like removing all uppercase text transforms, for example, because not good for accessibility, or if people really prefer to sketch in code and want to make a rough proposal. So this is how 7 looks when it's green. They're free to do that as well. But on the other hand, consider Christina and me your art directors, and basically leading the actual design decisions we need to make.
Or another thing we could do to get started is if the first step is to make a copy of the 7 theme and name it 8, the next step might be to start separating that into a base theme and a child theme, and decide what parts of the theme system should be part of the base theme, what can be reused.
Yes. I always suspect when I hear that kind of thing, that's doing it right? And I'm not sure this is the environment to do it right. We don't want to do it quickly, mostly, and maybe learn about what we need to do it right. So what I suspect what you're saying is that might be a workflow that slows us down. If it doesn't, fine. If it does slow us down, we should probably not use this specific effort as the way to find those specific things out. Sorry. Is that clear?
Yeah, I think it can slow you down if you're more up for experimenting and try different things. Maybe it's better to keep it in one instead of starting to separate. This separation can happen at every time, I reckon. So, because it's more like, for example, the base team can hold the layout stuff, and the child team can hold the styles and in terms of colors and fonts and whatever.
I mean, I think it's definitely a worthwhile effort. It probably needs some alignment with the JavaScript team if you really want to do it right. I don't know.
Yeah, that and I know exactly which will be the parent and which will be the child and so on. So I guess it needs a little bit of discussion.
Jacob, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot. Okay, I'm just going to throw out, like, you're proposing this concept, like you're the designers, you're building out your system, and you want someone to implement it. And how do you get it implemented as fast as possible? And I feel like if you look at more traditional workflows, you have someone working like in Pattern Lab or a separate design system. They build out the whole design and then they say implement it. And you've separated out those two concerns. And the biggest benefit I see for the Drupal community is, my gut with front end people, which I'm not, is they do bursts of work, like they have downtime. And like if someone set up an entire design system and said, this is the look and feel we want, this is our thoughts, people have looked at it, we've clickable prototype these concepts, and now we need this converted over into a theme. Where we're going to make a suggestion that you copy the 7th theme, or someone might come in and make some other suggestion. But that might be a faster approach where you just break up, here's our design patterns that we want to implement that people have looked at and kind of agreed on, and then giving someone this opportunity to come in and do a burst. Because doing this like piecemeal iteratively could take a really long time. I'm just throwing it out there. Like I feel like the themers have like 2 weeks, and they might be they literally, if you gave them a new design for the 7th theme, like just the design patterns, like here's our sketch files, they could knock out the whole admin theme in 2 weeks for someone to step in when they have time. And that seems more practical in this community than, I might be totally wrong because I have never dealt with it, implementing a new theme in Drupal, but I'm just.
No, I think I agree. As Christina said, we don't have an actual visual design approach defined yet. So whatever people would do in this hypothetical for now, 8 theme would be playing, right? Experiments. And it could inform whatever design work we're doing. If people like to sketch in code, prefer sketching in code over using this Figma tool. But the spec will need to be at least some kind of 60-70% covering the components we need before we can really say, okay, all our buttons, we know what the buttons should be, go make buttons. We know what the tables should be, go make tables, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the first step will be to separate everything on the right components, but I wouldn't say that jump into pattern lab. Maybe that's maybe another discussion to have.
I just threw out pattern lab because that's what I've worked with, and I'm not, it just makes it easier for you, like people to iterate off to the side of the Drupal site. You have to make sure your classes match up, but that's not that big of a deal. If you make a mistake in pattern lab and some class name doesn't match up, a front end person knows how to fix that. I mean, the other thing I'll just throw out there is information architecture changes don't seem appropriate to reworking the admin UI theme. Like, just it's that simple. They're 2 different concerns.
Yeah, very much so. They both add up to what the admin user experience is, but yeah.
But the information architecture changes could happen totally independent of anything going on with the design.
Yes.
Yes, but it should happen at some point. I mean,
they could merge, but I'm just throwing out there, like, it's. I mean, even when we started talking, I felt like you have user interface, which you're working on design, and then the information architecture, and then messaging. The language issue is also a slightly separate thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more concerned, for example, if you want to change the pattern, how you jump to one page to another, how I don't know, the workflows are thought. I mean, somehow the information architecture is going to be related to that somehow. So if we really want to improve how the user experience for Drupal, this is going to happen not in 5 years. It should happen sooner than that. So this will happen, I guess, somehow as a part of this design system, but of course it's not going to happen in half a year.
No, but I think what Jacob's saying is some of, I mean, stuff like moving custom blocks to content does not need and does not require a new visual design language to be in place just in order to be able. I mean, if we have a module that does make that change, and we can make a usability test and contrast and compare if it works better, then we've made that point, right? And we can either propose it as a change to core itself, or at least implement it in whatever new admin experience.
Right. The things I was talking about at the start of the meeting certainly belong in the UX discussion, but they are not part of the redesign of the admin theme.
No. So where I split those out in my diagram and sequence them, that sequence is not necessarily, they don't require each other, at least in some parts. So definitely information architecture experiments could be started with. Especially because Christina and I and some other people are also preparing some usability testing work, but that's for another meeting. Yeah, we're well over time. I would like to thank you all for your attendance and input and good questions and suggestions. Happy to see some new faces on the meeting as well. Talk more in Slack. Admin-UI is the more specific channel. Feel free to ping me, Christina, Gabor, etc. With your questions if you have them, and we'll start getting more things in the queue and create more actionable items moving forward. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Good night.